Stay tuned for the GSN Digest. Welcome to the GSN Digest, a short program of various features. The show starts now.
Hello again. This is the second edition of the Digest and there's interesting stuff this week. Sid the Kid and his Pittsburgh Penguin teammates are going to the White House, but some people think he should join the protest against President Trump's remarks about black players in the NFL and other sports leagues. We have something about that on Speaking Sports. This week we debut our once-monthly feature Our Man on Mars and give a brief history of the Red Planet. On Pieces of History, Mike shares something about history began, and Notations has a few words about the birth of hip-hop. But first, the News Watch.
This is the News Watch.
57,000 people have fled an area near Bali, Indonesia following volcanic eruptions near Mount Agung last Tuesday. Increasing tremors have been felt, indicating that magma is pushing towards the surface. Sutopo Purwo Nugroho, a spokesman with the country's National Disaster Mitigation Agency, said around 560 shallow earthquakes were recorded last Monday and an alert was issued and raised to high on Friday following a dramatic increase in seismic activity. The volcano last erupted in 1963, killing more than 1,000 people. This is Speaking Sports, a weekly sports feature. U.S. President Donald Trump has a lot of people ticked off at him for his criticism of NFL players not standing for the national anthem. Some other players in other sports are mad as well, but recently, the Pittsburgh Penguins were invited to the White House. Now it gets interesting. Sidney Crosby, a member of that Stanley Cup team, has stated that it's a great honor for us to be invited there. Many Haligonians have said that he should join the protest and stay home. Recently, Halifax City Council considered naming a street after the hockey star, but are also planning to reconsider if Crosby goes to the White House. Reaction was fierce on social media. Several tweets on Twitter. Sidney Crosby is a bum just like Trump. If he goes to the White House, better stay there too. Other responses say it's about the tradition and the landmark, not the idiot that is the occupant. On Facebook, people wrote things like this: the Penguins don't exist outside of current events, and the decision to visit or not visit the White House is politicized either way. The Penguins made the wrong choice. The Penguins and Sidney Crosby are left standing on the wrong side of history. I hope he reconsiders. He'll be making a stand. Either way you look at it, the issue of whether or not Sidney Crosby goes to the White House is politicized. If the president said something, people respond. Maybe the whole team should avoid the White House. That should do it.
This is the GSN Digest, a short program of various features.
Should Sidney Crosby go to the White House or not? You be the judge. Well, we begin our monthly look at Mars. Here's the first installment. For centuries, Mars has fascinated people. That small red ball has been the sexiest planet in the solar system, so much so that modern scientists are exploring the planet to see if we might someday land there or colonize it. Mars became the focus of observation around the mid-10th century by ancient Egyptian and Chinese astronomers and ancient Greek astronomers. Ancient drawings and maps suggested that most of the planets revolved in a circular orbit, but Mars was seen as having an elliptical orbit. The first time a telescope was used to observe Mars was when Galileo spotted it in 1610. Better technologies made it possible to see in more detail the brown patches and polar ice caps. Since the 1800s, Mars has been the subject of many observations and has been studied several times by telescopes and more recently robotic rovers and spacecraft. Our fascination doesn't end there. We now have regular missions and send robots on the surface to study the planet, chemistry and atmospheric composition. If you want to read in more detail about the history of Mars, go to the Wikipedia website. This is Pieces of History, looking back at the past. Last week we had a short piece on Columbus. This week we ponder the very beginning of history. The first scribblings of man may be a starting point. We might go back as far as the Homo sapiens or cavemen. When man he first learned to use symbols to communicate their ideas. Prehistoric events were thought to be happenings that took place before man started putting his ideas and accounts on slabs of stone. History as we know it probably started with early writings and evolved over time into the massive amount of those writings into books, which have become a running account of what did, or was said to have occurred throughout time. We now have this body of writings and more recently, recorded accounts as our look at past events as a means of chronicling yesterday's happenings. Perhaps what has happened might happen again, but we now have accounts of the past and take steps to ensure some parts of history don't repeat themselves.
You're listening to the GSN Digest, a short program of various features. The show continues.
With all that stuff, we should make sure history doesn't repeat itself. Hip-hop is the sound of today, but when was it born? Mike tries to explain it on the week's Notations segment.
This is Notations, a music feature.
Music's evolution is ongoing. Music has a long history. The music your grandmother or mother listened to is strange sounding to today's young people. The pop music of the 1970s gave way to the breakdance tunes of the 1980s and 1990s, which has given rise to the sound that seems to be dominating the airwaves of today. The roots of hip-hop and rap music goes back to the 1970s. Inner-city New Yorkers coined the term hip-hop is a mixture of records, interspersed with beats, reminiscent of disco music, scratching sounds and a Jamaican vocal style called toasting, a chanting-like style, came into vogue. Hip-hop music is diverse and reaches many different cultures. Rap music is mainly confined to inner-city ghetto regions and in some cases is highlighted by messages of violence. Hip-hop music is not just one kind of music, it's a mesh of different styles which are given under one main styles like gangsta rap and crunk, a Tennessee-based brand of music which is a fusion of hip-hop, electro, and electronic and Miami-based dance music. Music is forever evolving and will continue to do so as we move forward.
Group of dashes, tune in next time for another edition of Notations.
People are hip-hopping their way through their day, but we've got too much to do for dancing our time away. Take care and see you next week.
That's all for this week. We hope you enjoyed the show. Your feedback is more than welcome. Drop us a line at programs@gsnvancouverbc.ca or visit us at gsnvancouverbc.ca. We're back next week with another edition of the GSN Digest. Thanks for tuning in. So long for now.